Hello everybody, my name is Kamoko Faith and welcome to Attorney's Corner. In this episode, we will be discussing the importance of having a will as Black South Africans. Salam did a study in 2022 where it showed that 75% of Black South Africans do not have a will. Now, having a will is so important to anybody in South Africa or, well, in the world. Having a will ensures that your assets, when you pass, will be distributed to the people that you intend to inherit your estate, and having a will also avoids family conflicts in its base. Now, I know as Black South Africans, we watch and we have seen shows on television channels such as Moja Love, where a person passes and families fight over their assets and everybody just comes from everywhere and everybody wants a piece of the assets of the deceased. Having a will avoid all that complication. Now, you can have your will drafted on your own, granted, or you can have it drafted by a professional. Now, if you were to draft it by yourself on your own as a layperson, there are a few requirements that you need to comply with to ensure that your will is a valid will. The first requirement is that to be a testator, you must be over the age of 60. You must be 16 and older. And the second requirement is that you as a testator must sign your will, and you must also sign your will. The will must also be signed by two witnesses, and they must sign in your presence. Now, me, I prefer for all my clients to sign the will on the same day, and they must sign every page. If the will is more than one page, they must sign every page, witnesses and testator, every page at the bottom of the page, just to ensure that that compliance with the requirements is met. Now, I said that it must be signed by two witnesses, and to be a competent witness, you must be 14 or older to be able to sign a will as a competent witness. Now, there are some, well, they're not complications that would not make the will valid, but there are just a few things that I would like to just bring forth to people so that they know that if you, I'm gonna make up a scenario. You are a wife to a husband, and your husband now wishes to have a will. He intends to have a will, but due to, let's say, a lack of education, he cannot write. And you as the wife now come forward and you put your hand up and be like, "Hi honey, it's not a problem, I can write your will for you." Please note that if you are writing a will in your handwriting on behalf of a testator. Now, a testator is the person to whom the will belongs to, the person who will sign there at the end that this is my will. That's the testator. If you now, as yourself, as the loving wife, be like, "I'm gonna write this will for you in my handwriting," and you're only just gonna sign it, you will be disqualified as the wife from inheriting from your husband's estate. If any person writing a will on behalf of a testator as just to help out, you cannot inherit in terms of that will. And this goes also to any person who is a nominated beneficiary in the will and they witness the will. You will not be getting any benefit from the will. You cannot inherit anything from the will if you sign as a witness and you are a nominated beneficiary of the will. Now, there are a few clauses. I myself I'm a simple will person. I don't believe in complicated wills. If there needs to be one because you have so many assets that it's gonna be a problem not to have a complicated will, by all means, go ahead. But I believe in your will should be as simple as it possibly can, especially if you do not have that many assets. Now, another scenario. Let's just say you live in the townships and the only assets that you have, your house and your car. Now, keep your will as simple as possible, please. There are a few clauses that I would encourage that you put in your clause, just to make sure that that simplicity is there, but also that there's no confusion with regards to what you intend as a testator. Now, the first thing that you would put on your will is the introductory clause. This introductory clause, it just introduces you. It just says that this is me, my name, my full name, full ID government name. Your full name is in there. You write your, I prefer that you write your ID number in there, and you just state that this is my last will and testament. There it is, your introductory clause. Now, the second clause that I would prefer that you put in there is a revocation clause. A revocation clause just states that, listen, if I had any previous wills prior to this one, those wills, they don't count anymore, they don't matter, they are revocated, they are deleted, don't look at them, look at only this one. This one is the true intention of what I want to happen with my assets and how to distribute them. That's what a revocation clause means. It just says that I revoke all previous wills prior to this one. Finish. That's it. The other wills that you had prior, they are now revoked. They're not going to be taken into account. Now, the third clause that I would prefer that anybody puts in their clause is the appointment of an executor. You appoint, please, the person that you trust that would administer your estate properly. There are some people out there that you maybe would trust and say, hey, Binsham, my friend, I'm going to draft a will, I'm going to put you as an executor, and you're going to administer my estate. And then comes time when you now have passed and they need to administer the estate, and they have this nomination in your will to be appointed as an executor, but then that person doesn't know how to administer an estate, and they've never heard of anything such of administering an estate, which is now going to create problems for you. They can renounce the nomination, but most people also don't know how to do that in Black South Africa. So if you were to be appointing an executor, please note to appoint somebody that has an inkling of how to administer an estate, or a person that is qualified to do so, such as an attorney maybe, or an accountant, the relevant people just to assist you in administering that estate correctly. You put that clause in there. You appoint somebody you nominate somebody that is going to be appointed to administer your estate properly for the benefit of those who need to inherit. Now, the other clause that you would put in your will would be, the next clause then would be the inheritance clause, or the distribution clause. Now, in that clause, you would now name all the people that you wish to inherit your assets, and as like the first one in the introductory clause, you place full government names. I also here prefer that the IDs are also there, just to avoid any confusion that this is the correct person that you intended to inherit. So their full government names and their ID numbers, as well as what you wish them to inherit specifically. Just name the assets specifically. So maybe you say Pitbohompu, identity number 12345 to 13, and then you say that I intend, or I wish, it is my wish for Pitbohompu to inherit my 2002 Toyota Corolla, Model T, whatever. I'm not a car person. And then you would come next and you say Dorothy Parker, I wish for identity number. It is my intention for this person to inherit 200,000 rand from my estate, and then so and so on and so on you go. But I made the example that you only have a house and a car, so that would just be like this named my spouse with this name. I wish for them to inherit 50% of the house if the house is fully in your name as a deceased, 50% of the house, and then you list the names of your children, and then they inherit however many shares that you wish to leave for them to inherit. Just make everything as specific as possible when it comes to the description of what you want them to inherit, just to avoid any type of confusion. Now, the other clause that you would have to put in there is the residue clause, and you just state if there is anything left after I've given everybody everything that I wanted to give them. If there is anything left in my estate, that portion must be paid over to again, name specific person with full names, ID number, avoids confusion. That portion would just be inherited by that person. That is the my words just left me, the residue clause. Now, another clause that I like to ask clients specifically when they come in for consults, I'd like to ask them, do you have a life policy? And if you do, is that life policy, does it nominate a specific person that is going to, when you pass, that money or those funds are going to pay to that third party? If they don't have a nominated party that is going to receive those funds, I advise them that, okay, you don't have that, those funds are going to form part of your estate. Do you have any minor children then? And if they do answer yes, I just advise them, okay, let's do this. We're gonna make provision for a testamentary trust in your will for the benefit of those minor children, because sometimes we see that, especially in Black communities, that a person dies, they have children, the parents of the deceased come, the siblings of the deceased comes, the aunties, they come, everybody comes, they take, and they forget that the deceased has children, and they also need to benefit from the deceased estate. Now, I advise clients, if you do have that life policy and there is no nominated third party to receive those funds, where it's going to pay out to, it will form part of your estate. And if you do have minor children, just make provision for a testamentary trust for the benefit of those children, and say that these funds from this life policy should be paid into my estate, will be paid into my estate, but they should be protected in terms, or be paid into a trust that will be for the benefit of my minor children. And then in that also, in that clause, you also make provision for the appointment of trustees. Now, when you make the appointment for trustees, is the same as the making the appointment for the executor. Please make sure that you nominate for the appointment of trustees that are educated and qualified, just to make sure that the trust would be administered as properly and as flawlessly as possible, because we do not want problems after when it comes to the administering of the funds for your children, your minor children, so that they can also just inherit, because more than often they are overlooked, and they don't even see anything of their parents after the parents have passed on, which it's a sad reality, but that is what it is, especially in Black South Africa. Now that you have that testamentary clause in your will, I leave it like that. For me, it is as simple as it can be, and then we date, we sign, everybody signs at the same time. The testator, the witnesses, everybody signs at the bottom of each page of the will, should the will be more than one page. Now, that's where I would leave the will. You now have a will, it's completed and it's valid, it meets all the requirements. When you pass on, it can be taken to the master's office, and then there wouldn't be any rejections towards the will. Cool. What happens now when you, as a Black South African, you have assets and you pass on and you do not have a will? Your estate will be administered in terms of intestate succession. This is a problem in Black communities, because as we said, 75%, well, based on the 2022 research done by Sanlam, 75% of Black South Africans do not have a will. And many of us don't even know what to do when a person passes, regardless of whether they have a will or not. We just don't know. But it's worse when they do not have that will. So if you don't have a will, your estate will be then administered interstate. And I want to just give Black South Africans, I'm just going to give you a list, not even a list, I'm just going to give you, in terms of the Intestate Succession Act, who inherits first if you do not have a will. Because as I said, people come, your parents come, your siblings come, from all over, everybody just comes, and it's a mess because the assets go to the people who aren't even in the list of inheriting, and it is just a mess. So now, if your estate is to be administered interstate, the first person that would be deemed as the first person to inherit your estate is, should you be married, you don't have a will, and you don't have any children, your estate will then be inherited by your wife. Only your wife. You don't have children, you are married, your wife inherits your estate. Next on the list to inherit will then be, should you pass and you have a wife and you have children, your wife would inherit greater than 250,000, or what we call child share. Now, I will make a different video for child share in South Africa on its own, because just to explain that concept of child share, I believe it deserves its own video. But should you pass and you have a wife and you also have descendants, which are children, then your wife would inherit greater, whichever is greater, between of 250,000 or child share. Now, the next would be, should you pass on and you only have descendants, you don't have a child, you don't have a wife, but you only have children, your children will then inherit your estate in equal shares. Again, what a heart. It's the children are the ones who are going to now then inherit the estate. Now, the next would be, should you pass and you don't have a wife, you were never married, and you don't have any children, then now, but you do have living parents, descendants. You have living parents, then your parents would then inherit your estate in equal shares. Now, following that, should you only have one living parent and the other parent has predeceased you, or before you, maybe not, but before you, yes, definitely, and then you have one surviving parent, and but the deceased parent also had descendants, which are now your siblings, your estate would go 50% to your surviving parent, and then it would be the other 50% of your estate would be distributed to your siblings in equal shares. Now, should you pass, you don't have a wife, you don't have any children, you don't have parents, your mother and father have predeceased you, but you do have siblings, then your siblings would inherit from your estate in equal shares. Now, should you pass, you don't have any of the above up to including siblings, then your estate would be distributed to your closest living relative. Now, should you pass, you don't have any of the above, no close living relative, you don't have siblings, you don't have parents, you don't have children, you don't have a wife, then your estate would be surrendered to the state, to the government. However, I don't believe that happens often. Usually someone comes out as family of the deceased to inherit the deceased assets. Now, I would just like to explain, when it comes to children, when it comes to children born out of wedlock, please, those people have as much of a right to inherit as children that are born within wedlock. And also children that are adopted, they are seen as the natural children of the deceased. They also have as much of a right to inherit as the children of the biological children of the deceased. So you can't come and now say, because I have seen this happen before, where like, but they adopted the child, Black South Africa, the child was adopted because the child wana beliwa rahadi, but then the family said hore sesi a hodishe wana rahadi o adoptile. If you adopted the child legally, then that child has as much of a right to inherit from the deceased estate. The other children who have right to inherit can't now come and say, mama. Please, if that child was adopted legally, they have as much of a right to inherit from the deceased estate as much as the biological children of the deceased does. So yeah, that's just the video that I wanted to put forth out today. Just highlighting the importance of having a will in Black South Africa, because there are so many fights, so many unnecessary and fights that can be avoided by just drafting a will, and in the will just placing forward your intentions as a testator of what you want to happen with your assets when you pass. So yeah, please, I urge you, South Africans, Black South Africans, please draft wills. As I said, you can opt to do it yourself, or you can opt to have a professional assist you in drafting your will, but please do draft a will and do end this family conflicts for when you pass. It is super important just to make sure that, especially when it comes to your children and your minor children, so that they aren't left behind with nothing when you pass, that they can inherit from your estate, that they can go and live a life with assets that you have acquired in your life, and that those assets can assist them financially and provide financial security for them. Because we do know, when, especially if a breadwinner passes, that the family can be left destitute, the family can be left without anything, and then the family can suffer, and then children have to drop out of school and such situations. And those are really sad to see. Those are situations that I wish did not happen, but unfortunately the reality is it does happen. So yeah, I encourage you, Black South Africans, please, if you have assets and you don't want those assets to be fought over, or you don't want extended family members to deprive your children of the things that you worked for in this life that you want your children to enjoy, please draft a will. And that is it for today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy your day, everybody. Goodbye.